Mouse is going haywire here. Trying to close that participant window. Hold on. Okay. Good afternoon, good evening, everybody. This is part of the Special Forces for Life program, the fifth webinar that we've done in the series. My name's Pete Tingstrom. I'm one of the committee members, and on behalf of Kevin Harry, the president, and Ed Richter, who kind of oversees the SF4Life committee, I'd like to welcome you to this broadcast of our SF4Life program. This one's probably the most important one that I've seen us do to date because it affects every single one of us. And that is preparing for the end of life, because none of us know how long we have, what our legacy is, what kind of support the Special Forces Association and other VSOs could do. And we're going to end it up with some great VA survivor benefits information that is crucial for all of us to know. Everything that we'll cover today, not only the video itself, but the slides, and I'm putting together a step-by-step checklist that family members can use as long as we tell them where that is, that can help them do step-by-step when they lose their loved one. I'll be the first one presenting. I'm the SFA Chapter President out here in Hawaii. We have Rear Admiral Ann Duff from the VA and Larry Provost, and I'll let them introduce themselves when they get ready to speak. So on to the next slide. So end of life preparations. I'll just make this a little bit bigger so I can control that. Last will and testament. I don't know how many people I've talked to that, in fact, even today, it's been 14 years since I did it. They were married, they're not now. They have new kids or grandkids. Things change. So you want to keep your last will and testament updated, and or at least have one, so it doesn't go into probate. You should be able to do with your wishes what you want. Some people need to have a trust, and the trust is very beneficial when a third party is the one that takes care, because they're looking after your kids or looking after a pot of money that you give them guidance on what you want that money spent for. Power of attorney, special power of attorney, healthcare power of attorney, all kinds of different power of attorneys to allow both, if you become incapacitated, for people to do things on your behalf. And some of those have to be updated because some banks will not accept a certain power of attorney that's over a year old. So you want to keep those updated as well. Living will, an advanced directive. Obviously, no family wants to pull the plug on their loved one, but we've all seen it where their resources are just being gobbled up by the hospitals and the system, and all their inheritance, when they have no chance of surviving, to go ahead and pull that plug or whatever your directive is to your family. Letter of intent. That's just a product that you could put together as you look at your wife, your kids, your grandkids, your friends, your neighbors, whoever's important to your life, who you want that car or that boat or your SF plaques, your boards, your all that kind of stuff. Things that you need to talk to with them. Death is not a fun topic. That's why life insurance is always tough to talk about. But these things do need to be talked about. Otherwise, everyone's fighting over your stuff. And some people might appreciate some of those things better than others. So a letter of intent helps with that and helps with your last will and testament. DD Form 214, that is important. You may have one, but you may not know where it is, or your spouse may not know where it is, or your executor of your state doesn't. And that's what helps you get a lot of the benefits that you could get. We have all kinds of stories of people not being able to find them. I myself have 3. I was on active duty, I was in the reserves, then I went on active duty again. I have 3 different DD Form 214s, and not everyone pays attention to that last one to make sure it covered all that prior time, all those awards, all those schools, all those deployments, because all of those potentially lead to certain benefits. So not only do you have to have these things available for you, you need to let them know where those documents are, whether it's in your office, the top left desk, in a safe deposit box, wherever. And then personal info. I have 5 pages of accounts, and that's everything from bank accounts, all my emails, all my social media, everything that I have a username password for, I have on a sheet of paper with the username, password, a PIN if there's one, any other special security thing that I need in there, the phone number, the website, all these bank accounts to include Sky Miles and all that stuff. That is very helpful for your family to be able to close a lot of those accounts. I was an executor of a will for my mother-in-law, and it's a good thing I still get her email. I have her email because I still get emails when I'm dealing with her estate. Next is what to do when someone dies. So on active duty, it's easy. You have a casualty assistance officer, and the unit's going to help you with the recovery, the evacuation, the transportation, the identification of the remains, returning your personal effects, lump sum death gratuity, etc. Most of us, when we get out, we don't have that anymore. But when we talk about SF4Life and Green Berets, helping Green Berets and our fellow associate members, this is what we do in Hawaii. And so I tailored this based on looking at a variety of different areas on how we help that spouse and family before, during, and after. This team house supports you not only while for the moment you don your Green Beret or you become an associate member, it even helps you after death. We're here to help and support the family. So the first step, you're going to obtain legal documentation of that death. Typically, that is your death certificate that you're going to get from the funeral home or the medical examiner. Very important document because you'll need that to deal with the IRS. You'll need to use that for your banks. You'll need that for other financial accounts, starting the probate process if that is in the picture because you don't have a will and testament, filing a claim to get that life insurance. They're not going to do anything without that paperwork.
Join the meeting.
And tending to other personal affairs. So very important document. And Anne's going to cover a little bit later how that document and what they put on there on the cause of death is important. I don't want to steal her thunder on that. Typically, you get that death certificate within a day or two of the passing. You get that very, very fast. Next, notification. Of course, you want to notify the appropriate people. This is a very difficult time. Some of those phone calls or in-person visits are going to be short. Some of them are going to be very long. But the last thing you don't want is close family members or very close friends hearing about it on Facebook or other people calling you when you're in the middle of notifying others. So obviously your immediate and extended family members. Your local SFA chapter. I say that because when I get called, we help the family through every step of the process from that date forward, much like a casualty assistance officer. And I'll show you the type of things our chapter does for that. But we can't help if we're not notified. Obviously, friends, coworkers, employer, frequent acquaintances, professional relationships, and any old friends. I know my brother-in-law passed away years ago, and my wife's mom didn't want anything posted about anyone. And they really wanted to attend the service, but they didn't even get the opportunity to because they didn't know about it. Then you have priorities like the Social Security office, banks, mortgage companies, financial brokers. And I'm not going to go into the fine print. You'll be able to see these on the slides when you get them, but wanted to show you kind of the big picture parties that you want to notify upon your loved one's death. And then, of course, insurance companies, you want to get that ball rolling because you'll need money to prepare for that funeral and help fly people in. And now that that breadwinner's gone, you might need that money to assist. And then make arrangements for the body. This is a difficult one, because if you haven't talked about it with your loved one, if it's not in their will and testament, if it's not in their letter of intent, the family is stuck. Okay, do they want to be cremated? Where do they want to be buried? What is that individual's last wishes? Is it with a family plot? Is it with a prepaid plot? To know, is it in a national cemetery? Is it in a local cemetery? Especially when it's sudden. We see every day very young folks passing away from cancer, from car accidents. They're never expected. So this stuff needs to be talked with family, as soon as possible. Are they having a memorial service, a wake? Do they want to be cremated? What do they want to be buried in? Who do they want to attend? So all that stuff is very important on where you're going to transport it. And the funeral home, when you pick one out, it's good to do that together versus the family doing it on their own. So there's no questions asked. You're just executing the plan that you've already discussed, whether you're ordering a casket and then help finding a funeral director. Sometimes your local church can help you with that, and your clergy, and how they want to be honored. Some of us want to donate our organs to science or research. So everyone has their own wishes, but we need to know what those are. And that's all tied with very quick decisions once you find out about their death. If you have children and pets, sometimes you may have to travel to someplace else. What are the plan for that? Heaven forbid you and your wife pass away in a car accident, and now there's no intent or any instructions on what the grandparents or the brother or the sister or the neighbor is supposed to do with those kids and your pets. So you got to think about those plans on guardianship and what you're going to do with all that stuff for both, not only initial decisions, but what you want for the long term, because you may have a neighbor step in near term. Secure your assets and do other stuff. Those regular things that go on with life need to continue, whether it's, checking your mail, looking into veteran benefits, which we're going to cover today, and helping you through that process. You may end up selling your estate. You may move back home closer to the family, maybe moving in with your kids. They may be moving in with you. All these things needs to be discussed. And obviously we want to carry out the descendants' wishes. You want to know where those documents are. And I talked about a digital estate, whether it's a paper copy or digital, to where mine's digital. My wife could just click on the link. And I'm going to show you a good product that Joe Hastings sent that we're going to share with everybody as well. That is some forms you could fill out, and they have quick phone numbers and or organization addresses that you just click the link and it takes you there. Very simple without having to Google. And you want to set up everything for your email accounts, like I talked about: life insurance, credit cards, medical, online banking, utilities, phone, cable, all that stuff you want to be able to have access to. Then making the funeral plans. This is probably one of the things that I get busy with the most with the ones we've lost here in Hawaii. And it's okay to ask for help. Now, I know the next of kin is going to be inundated with calls for help. The next of kin typically doesn't know what to ask for, doesn't know where to go for with this help. And that's what this brief is supposed to help them do. But that SFA chapter, can be there to help out with that. It can help write your obituary and your death announcement. It goes into the Drop magazine. It goes into a TAPS thing where we honor them on a Facebook site. It could go in the local paper if you wish. It could go into your service program that people keep for keepsakes. One thing I've noticed, I've buried about 14 people in Chapter 8 out here in Hawaii in the last 3 years. Not a single one of them had a picture picked out or their bio done. I had to go to the house, work with the family while they're grieving, and pick the photo, whether it's a young photo, whether it's a current photo, whether it's both, and then the bio to write what they did in their career. While we're alive, we have a place you can do that. It's called the SFA Team House that 100% of our SFA members have access to. And in your profile, it's got a section to put your bio, to put the picture that you would like, and to put a bio on how you want to be remembered. You can go through your old awards. You can look at your TD Form 214s, your ORBs, your ERBs, your 2-1s and 2-alphas, and you know how you want to be remembered. No one knows your career as good as you. The other benefit of filling this out while you're alive is your local SFA chapter, looking for buddies or whatever, they can learn about you. You know, we go to these SFA meetings and small talk, you do your official meeting, have a beer, whatever, and you may not know that much about the guy on your left and right's background. And there's some amazing Americans to our left and right that have had amazing careers, and I find it fun to read about it. I don't want to have to wait till they pass to read about it and have conversations. That's in the SFA team house. Making funeral plans. So are you going to do a large service? Are you going to have an event after it? Sending out invites, determine the memorial type, tasking people out for food, flowers, drinks. Are you doing a big celebration of life afterwards? And there's certain things, I'm not going to cover the National Cemetery Burial or the State Veteran Cemetery, but the VA will cover that here after me. The funeral home, again, the director usually makes their arrangements with that local military unit for military honors, or the burial flag and the headstone and the presidential memorial certificate. But you know, you may have an inexperienced funeral home, and there's certain things that they're supposed to be doing. Of course, that VA rep or that SFA rep can help you with that. But again, you need the DD Form 214 for that. And I put a link and a phone number and the burial benefits for veterans and their families guide that the VA's put out, which of course they're going to cover lately. So what can you, the local SFA chapter, offer? We had a guy that was out here in Hawaii. He moved to another chapter. He passed away unexpectedly. I called out to that chapter president. I said, hey, what do you guys do for that family? And they're like, well, nothing, unless the family asks. Well, I ask all of you out there to be more proactive for our brothers and the families that pass. And let me show you exactly how you can do that. One is, every one of them, I send a letter of condolence on behalf of the Special Forces Association. I sign it, and when available, I deliver it in person. Sometimes they're on another island or another state, and I'm not able to do that. I will do that, and I bring flowers, and I do a face-to-face with the spouse and let them know the type of support that we can do for the family in preparation for what they're about to embark on for the next week or two, to include preparing for the service. We help them prepare for the obituary, to have the write-up and to review it for their newspaper, funeral home service program, the drop and taps. Some of them, especially this last one we had, the family didn't have a lot of money. They didn't have an insurance policy, wasn't no longer on active duty anymore, medically retired. So we started a GoFundMe campaign. In less than a week, that family, we raised $21,250 to support that family, to help bring people out to the funeral or whatever that family needs. And obviously the local community helps with making, you know, meals and bringing it over, and that extension of support, you know, is pretty awesome. But that's one. Oh, and besides GoFundMe, you could use Team House. SFA Team House has a donation tab where you can also collect donations for that directly into a bank account, and then on behalf of your chapter, deliver it to the family. Next, we help plan the memorial service. Some churches, some Catholic churches, are very strict on how they do their service. Some not so strict. And I find they're some of the most strict on what you can do during a memorial service. So a lot of the things we typically would do to support the family in a memorial service, we end up doing it graveside instead. But the ones that we can do, we work it out with the with that pastor, that priest, or whatever religion that you may have, or it may be non-denominational type thing where you have a service to help the family. And then what do? If the family wants, we'll post 2 guards, one on each end of the casket. 30 minutes to an hour before, we rotate people in our green berets and stand guard for our brother as the family and people are coming through for viewings until that service starts. We read the Special Forces prayer, beautifully written. It's very appropriate for an event like that. And then, of course, if one of our members were very close with that brother that died, one of our members gets up and talks about it if the family wants. Again, this is all incumbent on the family's wishes. On the way there, we've acted as pallbearers. You can reach out to the Special Forces Brotherhood Motorcycle Club, which are nationwide. If you're in Colorado, the Special Forces Motorcycle Club. There's the Patriot Guard Riders, and even local law enforcement can give escorts during the funeral procession from the service to the gravesite. We get involved in that. And then lastly, during the support in the service, if we're able to play the Ballad of the Green Beret, every Green Beret, and we have about 300 in Hawaii. It's give and take. We have 98 in our chapter. We send the message to all, let them know about our brother that passed. For anyone that could show up in the Green Beret, we all get up there and sing the Ballad of the Green Berets. It's one of the most touching things the family and that community can see. The churches that don't allow it during the service, we do it at the gravesite at the cemetery. For our chapter, we have a chapter coin. We give that to the immediate family members. And then we take pictures with the family for them to remember that day. We've had touching stories of some people that didn't know their uncle. And because of the pictures and capturing all of that, they learned so much about their family member. They didn't even have a chance to come to it, but they learned from all the pictures and the stories that we put together for that family. And then the last thing you're going to do is settle the estate. Obviously, as the executor of the will and reaching out to the beneficiaries and the trustees, determining if you have a need for a probate, if there's no estate plan at all, closing out accounts and bills, that stuff takes time. And then distributing assets. And there's some details here on those type of things. So what happens if someone dies without a will? It goes into what's called intestate. And each state has a different law, and the courts decide the fate of all assets in the estate. We're talking inside the house, outside the house, whatever they have. Now, those that are married, you do have the spouse, and even without anything in paper, in most states, the spouse gets it without any documentation. But you need to look at the state's laws, and it's best to have an estate plan. Bonnie Cooper, I'm not sure if she's on here, but Bonnie is a superb asset, bends over backwards, works hours and hours every day for both the Special Operations Association and the Special Forces Association. Especially, she is the one, and she's an honorary member, life member of both. She's retired, and she's the wife of one of our Green Berets. She is the editor of U.S. Special Forces TAPS. And she struggles just like I did with, and she does a whole lot more, because if you see how many of our members pass each day, I see 5 to 7 posts of our members dying daily on these sites. Really sad to see this happen. The obits are written bad, a poor picture's turned in, and so we're pleading with you guys to do this, while they're alive. If you don't have information, can't find that DD Form 214, besides going to the National Archives, which I'll show you here in a little bit, you also can go, you can go to the National Archives to get that information. You can call the executive director of the SFA and hey, can you pull up my husband's application? Because he had to prove that he was SF, and he probably provided some documents proving that. And our executive director can send that to you. Yeah, some really bad photos have been sent sometimes. And unfortunately, sometimes there's no photo. We just put a Green Beret crest on there with the write-up because we couldn't get one from the family. And she spends hours researching and trying to find the next of kin or anyone to get information about some of our members. If you are buried in Arlington, or if you're in the National Capital Region, Chapter 11 does a fantastic job making sure that no brother is standing alone. And so they're familiar with that area. They can help that family plan on where to stay, gather or hold luncheons or receptions, and answer general questions about Arlington. So you can reach out to them through the team house or hit Ray Odin here, and the POC info's on here. The Special Ops Association, they have a stipend to help that new winter of our members. And then I just talked about what we did recently for our member in Arizona, but she had an example to where, if you guys remember Robert Spider Parks, he died last year on a trip, on a vacation to the Philippines. So imagine that, when the family didn't have the money to get that body repatriated from being overseas back to the USA. And our community pulled together and raised over $30,000 to help that family do that. Just amazing. And then here's the link to the Special Forces TAP site. Chapter 46 is one of our overseas chapters, the Colonel Nick Rowe Memorial Chapter. You can get to their chapter through Team House to get to their website, and it's also on here. They also have a survivor's guide, and a lot of it is built for all of our members that are overseas in other countries where you have to deal with the embassy and you're dealing with some other topics that we don't typically deal with. My goal is to pull what all these different chapters are doing, get one best practices checklist, whether you're overseas or not, to put together on our SFA team house. I talked about Joe Hastings, and a product that he put together right now is an Excel spreadsheet. And this is screenshots of that one document where you can fill out a lot of information that your family could use. Here's a link to the National Archives record search, where you can research for someone's records, and or you need to order a bunch of medals because you want them to display for the funeral. You could go to this site to request that type of item. He's got a page on here with PII, because you're going to need their social security. You're going to need their date of birth. You might not need their blood type, but that's good to know why they're alive if they're in an accident or something and they need blood. And it's just all kinds of informations about accounts, VA, pharmacy, login type stuff that you need. And I'm going to go through these pretty quick because we're going to send you a link to all this. But membership of all these different organizations, from our SFA team house to all kinds of military associations that you may be a part of, or other service and support organizations. He's already put an exhaustive list from the SOCOM Command Warrior Care Program, the Care Coalition. They could do a lot of stuff for our guys, both while they're injured and help you with resources and point you in the right direction. And there's a whole list of stuff from the VA to veteran service organizations out there that can help you. For those of you with, and some of this is not really next of kin type stuff, but there's lots of scholarships and charities for kids. There's a lot of information on grants and businesses. There's information on a variety of Christian ministries. There's MWR benefits and savings out there. All kinds of places where you could save money. A lot of people don't know and have this stuff. It's all collected for you in one place, and we're going to get this on Team House for you. And then lastly, there's a veterans benefit by state, a quick link where you click on the state that you're from. And I just picked North Carolina example, and it tells you about all kinds of different benefits for the military and how you can contact their VA local rep in that state to help answer questions for you to help you with that process. There's brotherhood-owned businesses out there. There's a variety of Facebook sites, whether it's within our network, the TAP site I talked about, folks that are dealing with cancer, brothers that just help brothers out, just all kinds of great websites out there. And if you know some, send them to me, because I want to be able to have this site be a one resource for anyone to get anything. There's a lot of Patriot stores in there from shops that help support us buy things, military shopping sites, all kinds of saved articles from different things that's SF related. And then lastly, I just want to tell you, thank you from the bottom of my heart for attending this. Our next webinar is going to be Tuesday, May 21st at 8 o'clock Eastern time. And it's going to be about programs in our community. If you look at the suicides and the issues with post-traumatic stress and post-traumatic growth and all these programs out there that a ton of veterans are even put together themselves, lots of nonprofits out there that are helping our community. And our community needs it more than the other communities, especially when you see our suicide rates, our injuries, and the things that we've had to deal with that others haven't too, at least to the degree with the number of deployments and with the amount of death, et cetera, that we've seen. That seminar is going to be on that topic, where we're going to invite some of those key ones so you can learn more about them, because they will pay for your transportation, airfare, housing, lodging while you're there. And a lot of them have inpatient programs. Some are better than others, but you can figure that out for yourself. And then on the Teamwork website, Team House website, we have a link to the 4 previous webinars that we did before. And lastly, if there's a topic that you'd want to talk about that you think our community could need, that we need to do the research to bring in the appropriate speakers, let us know what you'd like to see and hear. I see there's some questions in the chat, and then I will answer questions. Oh yeah, I'm sorry, making the slide larger. So I will send you these slides. You'll be able to see the fine print as well. I apologize for that. Army Human Resources Command website, retirees, download your military record. That's a great point. We'll add that to this. And yes, we're going to send this to you. So with that, let me stop sharing my screen and see if there's any questions before I pass it over to Ann. All right. And if you do have a question, you can go. Yeah, go ahead.
Joe here. I had three things. Sorry. While you're collecting and consolidating, make sure you get your medical records and your military records consolidated, because you don't want someone running around trying to find out what decorations to put on your uniform. You don't want to know if you have a medical condition and they can't answer for themselves. Well, someone can go through medical records. My wife, as an example, when she went back on active duty, they didn't have her records. So if she didn't have her records, she couldn't have had, if she didn't have those backups, they wouldn't have honored a lot of things that she went through. And then kind of a touchy subject, but most SF guys knows that my ex-wife is drawing Social Security under my name. Now, it's not from me, but she's trying to from me, but she's also getting 50% of my OPM retirement because we were married for over 10 years. When she passes, that money comes back to me. I don't know how to get a flag from that says your wife has passed. The VA doesn't track her. So that's a red flag in the sky on when my ex passes, that comes back. So people need to think about that point. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other short questions for me? And then we'll open up for questions at the end as well, because a lot of them, Ann, and we can get answered from the VA. All right, without any further ado, Ann, over to you.
Good evening, Pete. Ann wasn't able to make it tonight, so she asked me to step in in her stead. I apologize to you all. You missed out because Ann Duff is a fabulous speaker and a wonderful human being, but y'all are stuck with me instead. My name is Scott Bell. I work in the Office of Survivors Assistance for Rear Admiral Duff. I've been working at the VA now for about 19 years, and it's my sincere pleasure to be able to join you all this evening and talk to you specifically about VA's benefits for survivors. I'm going to try to share my screen because I do have some slides myself. And Pete, I'll make sure you get a copy of these so you can distribute them if you like. I will talk, I'll mention right off the top of the bat here, as I typically do briefings on all of the benefits that VA has to offer from all of the administrations, but I was very pleased to see a person I very much like on the agenda this evening. Larry Provost from the National Cemetery Administration is also going to be talking. So I'm not going to go into a whole lot of depth about what NCA does because you got a subject matter expert in Larry, and there's no way I'm going to top that. So I will talk about the other benefits though, and I'll talk to you a little bit about what you can expect of what VA can offer to your surviving family members, okay? So let me see if I can share my screen properly. And it looks like I can. And I'm hoping you can see that. Yes, you can. Perfect. All right. So I'm going to pull up my PowerPoint presentation here. Hopefully it'll go full presentation mode. All right. So yeah, this is going to be a general overview about the benefits that VA has to offer for surviving family members. I'm hoping that you'll find this valuable. I'm going to focus a lot on the benefits that we get asked about the most. But if any of you have questions along the way, please feel free to let me know. Or if there's any follow-up things you'd like me to run down for you, I'd be happy to do so. But we're going to be going over, generally speaking, what the Department of Veterans Affairs can do. And if you weren't already familiar, let's see if this is going to work for me. It's a little slow. Looks like I'm having a bit of trouble here. Hold on one second.
VA.
My apologies. It might not let me do the full presentation, but I'm hoping you'll be able to see this okay. Pete, can you see it all right? At least the general, okay, good. So what you may or may not know, and I hope you do have some familiarity, is that the Department of Veterans Affairs, one of our primary charges is to see to the family members of our veterans, particularly after our veterans have passed along. And VA is able to do that thanks to a variety of statutes that have been passed over the years that provide a lot of different benefits and services to surviving family members. Now, a lot of these, essentially all of the ones I'm going to be speaking about this evening, are federal entitlement benefits. I heard earlier mention about retiree benefits for your military service, and you may be familiar with a program called SBP, or the Survivor Benefit Program, that's offered through the Defense Finance Accounting Service. That is actually a Department of Defense retirement and annuity program, and that's a little bit different than what I'm going to be talking about, which are our entitlement programs. But just so you know, VA does have a variety of services. They mirror a lot of what's available to the veteran population. So we do have burial memorialization benefits, bereavement counseling. We have healthcare programs that are available. Financial compensation is available. Multiple education programs. The home loan guarantee program for certain surviving spouses will be available, and a few other different benefits and services. And so moving through this, it's important to know that the Department of Veterans Affairs is a very large organization, and I'm sure y'all have had some type of contact with us at some point. And you know, if you have feelings about it, I hope they're positive. I understand if they haven't always been, but we're working very hard, especially all three administrations, the healthcare administration, the benefits administration, and the cemeteries administration are all very focused right now on improving the benefits and services to the survivor population in particular. And so we're hoping that from a customer experience for those survivors, they are going to have a much more, I guess, soft landing, that the VA is going to be here and provide a better experience than previous generations have had. Now, as I mentioned, Larry's here and he's going to be talking about burial memorial benefits. So I'm not really going to go into these first couple slides that I have here. He's going to touch on the headstones and other memorialization items that are available, including flags and the memorial certificate that we have available. And I'm going to skip down here to bereavement and support. We'll start there. So the Department of Veterans Affairs has a couple different options when it comes to delivering benefits and services, and particularly bereavement services to surviving family members. Our first line, particularly within the VHA Healthcare Center, is probably going to be our chaplaincy service. Chaplains are available at all VA medical centers, and they provide non-denominational counseling, bereavement services to family members whenever they are needed. We also have services available through our VA Veterans Centers, particularly for the families of veterans who have already sought service through those vet centers. If you're not familiar, a VA Vet Center, these are distributed across the country. We have over 300 of them. They're typically located away from most major medical centers. They're very welcoming places, but they are staffed primarily at about a rate of 70% with actual, veterans who have served, who've been there and seen a lot of stuff and have been able to deliver care and counseling services to veterans as they readjust and they come home, they separate from service. Those vet centers also offer bereavement care to surviving family members, spouses, children, of family members or family members of those vets who have sought care at a vet center in the past. We have recently tasked our vet centers to also provide bereavement services to the surviving family members of veterans who have died by suicide as well. We want to make sure that those families are getting as many touch points with VA as they possibly need. And our vet center services have fantastic clinical support, and they are going to do a phenomenal job. I just know that they are. But that is yet another place where a family is able to obtain those bereavement counseling services. VA also offers healthcare benefits to surviving family members. We have a program called CHAMP VA, which is the Civilian Health and Medical Program. That's the CHAMP part. And it is the sister program to TRICARE. They are very similar. It is a health insurance program. And this is a benefit for all y'all if you are a 100% service-connected veteran that your spouse is already entitled to receive. This is a benefit that can help offset costs for prescription drug services. They can provide payment to providers who are seeing them in the community. Any number of things the CHAMP VA program does have in place that can pick up a lot of things that aren't otherwise covered, maybe behind Medicare or other healthcare insurance programs. So if you're a 100% service-connected vet and you're on this call, make sure your family has been looking into CHAMP VA. It's another benefit that's also provided to our caregivers, our family caregivers who are caring for veterans are also going to be eligible to receive some care through CHAMP VA as well. There we go. But now I'm going to talk on the financial benefits. These are the questions that our office is certainly asked the most. And I'm hoping that after this evening, you guys have a good handle on them. But most importantly, I'm hoping you walk away with a point of contact that you know that you can always come to, specifically myself, the office I work for, You are always welcome to reach out to us. We are happy to answer whatever question you may have. And we're also going to be there for your surviving spouse or your surviving family members if they have those questions down the road at the time of need. But financial compensation, we offer two different programs. The first is dependency and indemnity compensation. VA loves acronyms, we call it DIC. The second benefit, which I'm going to touch on, is the survivors and dependents pension benefit or survivors pension. Now, dependency and indemnity compensation, DIC, is the closest analog to a service-connected compensation. DIC is offered in basically three different ways. It's offered when we can find a link between the cause of the veteran's death and their military service. So an injury or an illness, if it develops later on in life or is exacerbated because you were exposed to something during your time in service, years later you developed an illness, DIC, it will be able, if we can link that cause of death to your military service, we can provide DIC to your surviving spouse. This is a federal entitlement benefit. Your surviving spouse needs to have been married to you at the time of your passing. Your ex-wives or your ex-husbands are not going to be eligible for this particular benefit. This is going to be for the surviving spouse that you are married to at the time of your death. It pays at a base minimum rate currently of around $1,600 per month. There's a cost of living adjustment for this every year. It goes up every year. When I started, it was around $1,000 a month, and it's now at $1,600 a month. There are additional supplements that can be added depending on the situation of your survivor and your family. So, for example, if you had minor children in the home, there is additional funding for each child that is available. If your surviving spouse has health conditions, we can offer aid in attendance, which is, again, additional funds to help offset the costs for their health care. Those things, there's several different items that can be added to their benefit in order to make sure that they are receiving everything that they are going to be entitled to. And that's one of the reasons why we're here. We want to make sure that those folks are forewarned and therefore forearmed. Now, this benefit primarily is awarded based upon the veteran's cause of death, like I mentioned. If we can find a link between the veteran's cause of death and their military service, that spouse is going to get DIC. Pete mentioned earlier in his presentation that with death certificates, having conditions that you are living with currently, particularly if you are service connected for, I would like to encourage you to encourage your spouse to speak up at that time with either the attending physician that you're with, or if you're traveling, let them know. My husband has also X, Y, and Z condition. If you feel like those contributed at all to his cause of death at this time, please make sure that they appear on his death certificate. Having it in writing makes their lives so much easier. So that is one way that surviving spouse can really save a lot of just bureaucratic rigmarole later on down the line, and we want to avoid that as much as possible. So if you are service connected for any number of conditions, and if it's plausible that they contributed at all to your failing health and sadly your eventual passing, it's ideal for your family to advocate to have those things put on the death certificate. It's easy to do at the time of need. But if it's not done at the time of need, rest assured your family can have a death certificate amended. It can be done. It's not like if you miss it, it's done forever. It can be done, but it's definitely going to be helpful for that family member. As an aside, I actually spoke with a surviving spouse who was on vacation with her husband when he died. They were in North Carolina. They were visiting the Outer Banks, having a wonderful time. He suddenly fell ill. He passed in North Carolina. They were from Pennsylvania, and he passed at a local small community hospital, not a VA. And, she, thank God, had the presence of mind to say, he was also suffering with these conditions, and those things did appear, therefore, on his death certificate later, which, it ended up helping. So I speak from experience. It's an important thing to include if you can. This is something that, as a quick aside, Pete also mentioned advanced directives with your care. Having that type of information written out for your loved one, and so that is accessible to them. I cannot speak highly enough of that. That is such a key point to making their transition as smooth as possible. If you are receiving your health care through the Department of Veterans Affairs at a VA medical center or one of our CBOCs or whatever, you can speak with your social worker. Each medical primary care team has a social worker assigned to it. Your social worker will sit down with you and complete a advanced directive form for VA purposes, have it all written out for you. You can distribute copies to your loved ones, and they'll also be part of your electronic medical record within the VA too. So keep that in mind. It's helpful. Back to DIC. So like I said, DIC is primarily awarded based on the cause of the veteran's death. It's the same benefit we also pay for or offer to active duty service personnel who die in the line of duty. It's the exact same benefit. Those who pass in training accidents or in combat, their surviving spouses and family members are going to be getting DIC as well. The other way we can provide the dependency and indemnity compensation, though, is through an administrative grant of the benefit. So if you are 100% service connected for a certain period of time, specifically 10 years or more, you can, God forbid, get hit by a bus tomorrow and your spouse would still be eligible for DIC. We can grant that administratively if you have lived with that condition. And so that's why it's so important. And every vet I meet, I tell them, if you are living with a disability and if you feel that it is related to your military service and you applied and maybe you got a rating and it was kind of low and you're like, okay, or you applied and it was rejected and you're thinking, no, that's just for the other guys, or, for the guys who are really sick. It helps not only you now with your quality of life, but for your family later on. If you can get yourself to 100%, I encourage you to walk down that road. I'm not saying it's easy. I know I'm sure a huge portion of you all have applied for benefits and have had probably mixed experiences with VA. But if you find yourself at 100%, 10 years or more, we can administratively grant the benefit of dependency and indemnity compensation regardless of the cause of death. We can also grant it, for example, if you are at a lower rating, say 70%, but you have total and permanent based on individual unemployability. That can also meet that time frame if we move through those years, even if you weren't at 100%. So advocate for yourself, stand up for yourself, get those benefits, you have earned them. Now, I mentioned that DIC is available to surviving spouses. It is also available to your children. However, again, these are federal entitlements, and there are restrictions on who is able to receive this benefit. Specifically, these are age restricted. A child typically ages out when they reach the age of 18. Once they become 18 years old, they are able to apply on their own behalf since they've reached the age of maturity, and theoretically could continue to receive DIC up until the age of 23. You have to be enrolled in an education program of some kind to continuously receive that benefit. Now, there is some interplay between this benefit and our education benefits. Specifically, a child can't receive DIC and use Chapter 35 education or the Frye Scholarship, which is Chapter 33, simultaneously. We just, unfortunately, Congress hasn't given us that ability, so we can't pay both at the same time. So if a child over the age of 18 opts to enroll in an education benefit, then their DIC eligibility will end. They will start using their education benefit, and I'll touch on those in a little bit. The good news is those pay out at a higher rate than an individual adult child. But keep in mind, though, adult children up until at most at the age of 23 could potentially receive dependency and indemnity compensation. We also have DIC for parents. I don't know if y'all have your parents with you. If you're in that sandwich generation where you might have kids, you might have parents that you're caring for. When a veteran passes away from a service-related illness or injury, their parent may also be eligible for a parent's dependency indemnity compensation. And this has the qualification that regular DIC has, where we can tie the cause of the veteran's death to their military service, but it adds a wrinkle of being means tested for the applicant as well. So their income and assets would be considered when determining their eligibility. And I'll explain those mean tests a little bit more when I talk about our next benefit, which is the survivor's pension. So we talked about DIC. DIC, ideally and truthfully, is the more advantageous benefit for a surviving spouse to have. The survivor's pension is also available, though. If we can't find a link between that veteran's military service and their cause of death, VA still may be able to provide financial benefit to that surviving spouse in the form of this pension benefit. It is means tested, though. And so by that, Congress has established a maximum amount of money a person can make per year and qualify for this benefit, and then a maximum amount of assets that they can have on hand. I'm not going to do the calculation for you in front of you right now, because it's kind of, it's like algebra plus trigonometry at the same time. I'm kidding a little bit, but there is some math involved, because we are going to ask the applicant to provide information about any income source, including Social Security. Do they have any retirement benefit? Do they have are they working? And do they own their own home? Do they have multiple vehicles? Those things will all be taken into account. We'll compare it to what Congress has laid out for us with the pension rate, and if they fall below that rate, we're able to offer the benefit. I will tell you, it's not a benefit that a person can comfortably live on. That is a sad fact of this particular benefit, but it is a benefit that is available. And by God, if they don't qualify for DIC, I sure as hell want to make sure we can get them that survivor's pension benefit if it's possible. So those are our two main financial benefits. Those are the federal entitlements that VA offers. You may have also enrolled in VA's life insurance programs. I don't have a slide about VGLI or Veterans Group Life Insurance, but if you have Veterans Life Insurance, VA is prepared to pay to your identified beneficiaries at any given time. We would just need to know a notification of the veteran's passing, and we would proceed with that payment. It's very simple. As far as obtaining finances from the VA, if you have a policy in hand, it is the smoothest one to actuate. If you missed out on that opportunity of converting your SGLI to which is your service members group life insurance while you were under active duty, you were covered under SGLI. If you didn't convert to VGLI in that first year and 120 days after separation, there are other insurance benefits now available from VA that you can enroll in, specifically if there is a change in your disability rating. You can opt in for up to $10,000 of insurance benefits. It's relatively new. It's fantastic. I'm very glad that change was authorized by Congress, and so we're grateful for that. But so there are life insurance benefits available, but I must stress that's a voluntary program, and if you haven't put that in place already for your spouse, then it might not be there for them. The other two I mentioned, though, they are entitlements, and regardless of whether you've taken steps or not, if they meet those criteria, we're able to provide those benefits. And speaking back to, I'll just slip back one quick minute to both of these things, is I want to stress this enough, or a lot here. Maybe you're not affiliated with VA. Maybe you're not service connected with VA. And that's okay. Your surviving spouse may still qualify for these benefits. So even if you never walk through a VA's front door, they could potentially qualify for that benefit. It is an entitlement. It's a matter of whether or not they meet the eligibility. And with the recent passage of the PACT Act, more and more survivors are going to be eligible for benefits as surviving family members. The PACT Act, as you are probably aware, expanded the number of presumptive medical conditions that a veteran may be living with, and we can now link directly to their military service a lot cleaner, a lot more quickly. We just need to see, you were here, you have this illness, we can tie those two things together. So with the PACT Act survivor, even if their veteran never walked through the door, it's still possible that he or she could still qualify for a benefit from VA. And so I encourage y'all to have some information set aside for your loved ones and ask them, to look into it, because it's certainly something that could be available to them. Those are our financial benefits. We also have education benefits. I'll touch on those real quick, but I want to open up some time for questions, and I also want to make sure that Larry's got enough time to talk about all the wonderful things that NCA is doing. But we do have two education benefits offered by the Department of Veterans Affairs. There's the first one, which is the Survivors Independence Education Assistance, or we call it the DEA program. It's basically a stipend that is paid to the student while they are enrolled in school. It's made available to the family members of 100% service-connected veterans. So if you are blessedly still with us and you've got a spouse or a child who wants to go to school, they can potentially obtain this particular benefit, the DEA benefit. And if they're enrolled at a full-time rate, they can expect up to $1,400-ish per month in payments made to them while they're enrolled in school. They can spend those funds as they see fit. This benefit is also made available to surviving family members as well. If we can, again, like DIC, link the cause of the veteran's death to their military service, we can offer this DEA education benefit. Again, same pay rate. It's a 36-month benefit. They will prorate it. So if you have, when I started college so many years ago, I started and I took a part-time class load briefly. And so if I were a survivor and I was utilizing this benefit, I could notify VA that I'm not taking that full class load. They would lower the amount that I receive each month, but they would extend the amount of that I am eligible to receive benefits. Ultimately, the dollar amount that you receive over the total course is the same. The other benefit that we have now is the Marine Gunnery Sergeant John David Fry Scholarship. This is the Chapter 33 VA education benefit. Previously, you could change entitlement over to a family member with Chapter 33. You would have to be an active duty service personnel. Because it would result in a continued service agreement. But FRI is now also available to surviving family members. It pays full tuition and fees to the university of their choice. It also can participate in yellow ribbon programs, which means, let's say they want to go to Harvard. Harvard's tuition per year is a lot more than $27,120, but Harvard receives federal funding on a variety of different things. They have a variety of other funds available to make up the difference between what is available from this FRI scholarship and their own endowments. And the long story short is that person is going to be able to attend Harvard without paying money out of pocket. It also provides some funds for housing stipend and books and other supplies as well. Finally, I'm going to mention the home loan guarantee program. If y'all have bought a home with VA and used that home loan program that we do offer, a surviving spouse is also able to participate in this home loan guarantee program as well. The 20 millionth home that VA backed was actually purchased by a surviving spouse. That was just well, it was about 6 years ago. But the short of it is they need to be DIC eligible. And receiving that benefit. If they have DIC, they're going to qualify. If they don't otherwise qualify for DIC, they're not going to be able to participate in the home loan program. The other rules for that program though apply, and I won't hit you with them because everyone gets fatigued listening to this stuff over time. I am going to skip over here to this one page. I think it was already mentioned earlier. You might want to include this with your handouts. Army does a great job. They have a wonderful website, and in many ways are the envy of the other services because they have this benefit by state and territory web page. You click on your state, and it'll list everything that state's legislature has put together for residents of that state. So some states offer property tax relief. Some states, a veteran of a certain service connected level don't have to, pay for vehicle registration. It's a number of different things that are different than what we offer at the federal level, but they are very valuable benefits, and they are certainly worth looking into. And Army, bless their heart, has compiled all 50 states and all the territories and what they do. And there are benefits available to surviving family members listed in these on these pages as well. So if anybody can look at it, if they're a vet, doesn't matter what your branch is, these benefits are applicable to all veterans. But Army did a great job and they put that together. And so you'll have that hyperlink when I get these slides later. That's the crux of it. That was the speed run through all the VA benefits for survivors. The takeaway though is this: I work in the Office of Survivors Assistance. That right there is Office of Survivors at va.gov. That's our website, va.gov/survivors. Please reach out to us at any time. Please have this contact information available to your loved one. So, if later on down the line they've got questions about what VA can do, we are happy to answer those questions for them. Now, Anne and myself and Dion and Kristen, we're a small office. We're an office of 4 people. So we don't do all the processing of the claims. We do things like this. We do outreach. We go out. We help people understand what could be available to them. But another thing we do, though, is service recovery. So if your loved one is having a hard time dealing with VA, if they feel like they're getting the runaround, or they want to make sure that somebody at VA hears about an experience that they've had, be it positive or negative, they can contact us, and we will make sure that the appropriate ears and eyes are laid upon that issue. So if they've got a claim that's been stagnant for a while, we'll help them get it over the line. If they want to lodge a complaint or pay a compliment, we'll make sure that the appropriate people are made aware of their concern or their admiration. And we're here for them, and we are going to try to do it as best we can with as much care as possible. So Office of Survivors at va.gov. You can forget everything I told you. Don't forget the email. We are happy to help them. Okay. I do have time for questions, or I can sit tight after and answer questions after Larry. But whatever you need, we're here.
All right, thanks, Scott. Yeah, let's do the questions afterwards. Then we'll have the 3 of us standing by to answer. Okay, if you quit sharing your screen, I'll share mine with Larry's. I'll make it bigger this time. If we can see that better.
Hey, this is Larry, commo check.
I heard you, Larry.
Thanks. Okay.
Go ahead, Larry.
All right. Thanks so much, Pete. Thanks so much, everyone. Good afternoon or good evening. Again, my name is Larry Provost from National Cemetery Administration. I won't PowerPoint you to death, no pun intended. I just want to say thank you, first of all. I am a lifetime associate member of SFA Chapter 11 in DC. I'm an old civil affairs guy, so I'm not long tabbed, but in 2002, 2003 in Afghanistan, was with 19th Group, our civil affairs company fell under 19th, and just had an amazing time with some true heroes, and recognize a few familiar faces on this call already. So thank you so much. We're going to go through the PowerPoint here in a minute, but honestly, I'm just going to give you the down and dirty, like I would talk to a veteran on the street, because number one, this is a benefit that people don't like to talk about, and two, people have limited time. So basically, we're the national, and again, we're going to go through the PowerPoint here in a minute, but we're the National Cemetery Administration of the Department of Veterans Affairs. We have 155 national cemeteries, essentially most of them except Arlington, which is still run by the Army. In our cemeteries, for the veteran and the veteran's spouse, the opening and closing of the grave is free. The grave liner, which is like the vault, is free. The government headstone is free, and the forever care and maintenance of the grave is free for both the veteran and the veteran's spouse. Heaven forbid the spouse passes away first, same benefit still applies. Even if you choose to be buried in a private cemetery, we still can give the government headstone or bronze marker absolutely free. So average savings in our cemeteries can be up to even $10,000 to $15,000, depending on your locale. Private cemetery, headstone, that could be up to maybe around $1,000. So we really help you offer three legacies. We're not here to talk about death tonight. We're here to talk about how you can leave a financial legacy, a legacy of peace, and a legacy of perpetual memorialization. Next slide. Next slide again. Okay. And again, this is going to be sent out to you all, so I'm not going to read every line off. Our roots are in the American Civil War. The National Cemetery System was established under President Lincoln. However, NCA, National Cemetery Administration, was not founded until 1973, when we took over most of the Army cemeteries, a process that actually still is continuing to this day. Next slide. Okay, so I mentioned there are Army cemeteries, Arlington, the Old Soldiers Home, also in Washington, D.C. There's post cemeteries, Department of the Interior. We think of Gettysburg and so forth. There is actually one Department of the Interior cemetery that is still taking burials to this day. Andersonville, site of the infamous Civil War prison in Georgia. Overseas, of course, we all remember Saving Private Ryan, American Battle Monuments Commission, a separate federal agency, they administer those. And there are 121 VA grant-funded cemeteries, which are state, territorial, and tribal cemeteries, which, in the simplest of terms, we give them the money, and they run the cemeteries according to the very high standards that we set. Obviously, there may be some stipulations on being a resident of the state, either at the time of death and or military service. Same thing with territorial and tribal. Next slide, please. Okay, so we're one of three main agencies of VA. There's VHA, the Health Administration, VBA, the Benefits Administration, and NCA. We are by far the smallest, 2,200 team members. Most of them are in the field outside of DC, and almost 70% are veterans. That is the highest in the federal government. And 55% of those veterans are disabled veterans, which is the highest of any federal agency. It's pretty powerful stuff. Not that you have to be a veteran to do great work with NCA. However, there's really something special in taking care of our own, just like as was mentioned when one of our brethren passes away. How SFA comes out there. Next slide. Okay, so again, you're gonna get this PowerPoint, but the most important phone number you can write down for us is on this slide: 1-800-535-1117. I say again, 1-800-535-1117. That's for our National Cemetery Scheduling Office, which is open 7 days a week, 362 days a year, from 7 a.m. Central Time to 7 p.m. Central Time. The eligibility is simple. Any service member is on active duty, or the veteran was discharged under conditions dishonorable, other than dishonorable, I should say. Guard and reservists who were called to federal active duty, or they were entitled to retired pay, and spouses, dependent children, and certain parents. With that, so basically, for your guard and reservists, as long as you had some federal time that was not for active, or excuse me, that was not for basic, that was not for AIT, and was not for the Q course, all that stuff, just some federal time. Obviously in the SF community, that's not as much of a problem as quote unquote, maybe a traditional guard or reserve member in that sense. Also, since September 11th, 2001, regardless of where you are in the Guard and Reserve, there have been many, many federal activations. So that's become a little bit less of an issue, but you do have to have some active duty time. Or if you don't have that at all, if you're eligible for retired pay and I don't want to say all you did, but you did your 2 weeks of training every summer, then that's fine too, as long as you're entitled to retired pay. Spouse is. So again, as I had mentioned previously, if your spouse passes away first, sadly, the same benefit still applies. Very popular question. What happens if, heaven forbid, my spouse passes away and I remarry? Yes. Subsequent spouses, as long as there's not a divorce there, subsequent spouses who also pass away can also be buried in the same cemetery. And just in case anybody is asking, yes, we have many, many cemeteries where there are multiple spouses buried in. Dependent children, couple of things on that. First of all, adult dependent children. We do not bury adult children in the sense, unless they themselves are veterans. However, there is one exception if an adult child is under court-ordered mandated care of their parents. That would qualify as an exception for an adult child who had never served in the military. The second thing on children, I will say, it's very, very sad. Thankfully, it's very rare. But the situation does sometimes happen where there's a minor child who passes away. And if that happens to anybody here who is eligible, we do bury that child as well. Again, thankfully it's rare, but there are times where we do bury children. And I promise you, we do it with the same care and dignity that we do for the veteran and the veteran spouse as well. Just something that needs to be said. Certain parents as well. If an active duty member, for example, passes away and there's no spouse, then we would try to not sacrilegiously move heaven and earth to get an exception so that those parents could also be buried with that veteran if that's what they so desire. Okay, next slide. Oh, also on the eligibility, which is the previous slide, but that's okay. On the eligibility, if you do have an honorable discharge or even a general discharge, that's fine. OTHs, we look at those at a case-by-case basis and so forth. But even if you have an honorable, if you're convicted of a capital crime or a tier 3 sex offense, we do not allow burial in our cemeteries, and we do screen for that. Even if somebody does the pre-need application with us, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, if that happens, we do not allow the burial. So thankfully we don't believe that's going to be anybody here, but it's just something that needs to be said as well. It's something we take very seriously. Our places, our cemeteries, as was said in the movie Patton, it's a place of dignity, it's a place of honor. So okay, pre-need eligibility. So I talked a little bit about the financial legacy. Pre-need really helps you leave the legacy of peace. How do we do that? So basically, you go on the website, which is listed below, but frankly, you can just Google it and you can write in VA pre-need eligibility application for burial. Boom, it pops up. This is what pre-need does. You can register with us before the time of need, which is time of death, for yourself. You don't have to do it for your spouse. Just make sure your spouse has the marriage certificate. That being said, it's very important. Try to submit your DD 214 with it. However, since our office that handles pre-need is in St. Louis, we could literally walk ourselves over to the National Personnel Record Center. If for some reason you don't have your DD 214, we will try to go and find it for you. So you don't have to submit your 214 with it. but it just makes things a little bit easier. So what that means is when the time of need comes, your family will not have to look in the attic, look in the basement, or if you move to Florida, you won't have to look in the closet for the DD 214. Thank you, Scott, for posting that. I really appreciate it. Scott posted that website in the chat. So yeah, they won't have to be looking for the DD 214. That's a time where you should be grieving, where you should be mourning, where frankly, you should not be taken advantage of by people. Usually don't have time to say this, but I will say also make sure you research the eligibility laws within your state. Funeral regulations vary by state to state. In many states, believe it or not, a funeral home is not required. And a lot of states, embalming is not required either. And those things do cost a lot of money. And just in case anybody is asking, yes, we have had home funerals come to our cemeteries. I have seen on the back of a pickup truck where a family has gotten a $500 casket that they've gotten from certain stores. I won't name them because we don't want to be we don't want to be endorsing particular brands. Let's just say you can get a casket for as little as $500 or so online that meets the specifications for our cemeteries. And we've seen families literally bring them in on the back of a pickup truck, obviously once they've scheduled. So, but pre-need establishes that legacy of peace, that your family does not have to go looking for the DD 214 at the time of need. It also helps leave the legacy of peace in that, unlike civilian programs, signing up with us does not mandate that you have to be buried in one of our cemeteries. It merely provides the option. Also, if heaven forbid, maybe one of y'all passes away up north, buried in one of our cemeteries where it's cold, and your spouse takes all that great money that Scott told you about and says, I'm done, I'm moving to Florida. Yes, your spouse could be buried in a national cemetery in Florida or elsewhere away from you. Most people don't like to do that. Some people do for various reasons, or, hey, I was, it might be a financial thing. They may have fallen in love with Florida. Who knows? Sometimes people find out things post-mortem. It's like, well, I don't want to be buried next to that person anymore, but I do want that VA benefit. So it's like, hey, still eligible for any of the other cemeteries. So, but that is pre-need eligibility in a nutshell. Next slide. Oh, we also do not do set-asides. The only time we do a set aside where it's side by side is if both spouses are veterans. Generally, the method we use is what's called stacking. And what stacking does, one on top and the other on the bottom, it ensures basically almost double the burial space for our cemetery. So it really is something to help our fellow veterans out. Burial and memorial benefits. Again, we've talked about a lot of these. There's the headstone. Again, that upright headstone can be used in a government cemetery. It can be used in a private cemetery as well. The cost of making it is absolutely free. I will say for that, you see the bronze flat marker as well, we can ship those for free. However, private cemeteries may charge an installation fee. We don't regulate interstate commerce at NCA. We are a 3-letter agency, but not that kind of 3-letter agency. So we don't do the regulation for a private cemetery. So just be mindful of that. Medal of Honor medallion that can go on a private headstone, or excuse me, on a government headstone. The niche covers, that is what our columbariums look like. And for those looking at cremation and so forth, you'll see some of our new cemeteries or some that have been reopened. Los Angeles National Cemetery, one of our more famous cemeteries, was actually closed for quite a while, but we reopened it not too long ago because we got space for a columbarium there. So while we're not doing burials there, we are allowing the interment, the cremations there. And for those of you that are baseball fans, that is actually located next to Jackie Robinson Stadium, where UCLA plays, which is actually on VA land as well. Presidential Memorial Certificate. That is actually the most popular benefit, in the sense it is a certificate signed by the current commander-in-chief. You can't go back in the past, so we can't get, God rest his soul, JFK, who was very friendly to the Special Forces, and Bill Yarborough. Can't go back in the past, but you can get one with the current commander-in-chief, and subsequently every commander-in-chief that follows. So you can request an unlimited number for a veteran who has passed away. You ask for 5 or 10, that's not going to be a problem. If you ask for 500, we might give you a phone call saying, hey, just kind of wondering what you need 500 for. But the spirit of the law is that everybody, who requests one, you can get an unlimited number. The burial flag, that is actually provided by the U.S. Post Office, but there's going to be one burial flag. There's not going to be multiples. There will only be one burial flag for a veteran service. The bronze medallion, maybe you've already bought a private headstone and it's all already set in place. We've seen that happen. That's fine too. We can actually issue you a VA bronze medallion that can go on that headstone. Again, that is free. It'll annotate your branch of service. Mostly our SF brethren are here, so U.S. Army would be on there, and that can be affixed to a private headstone. That's free. The shipping is free. Again, there may be an installation fee depending on your cemetery. I will say too, sometimes you can get the government headstone or marker, even if there's already a private headstone there, depending on the date of death and so forth. So it's unusual to have 2 headstones, but there are cases where we have seen it. And the pre-need eligibility form that I told you about, if you know you're going to be buried in a private cemetery, but you want a government headstone, a little trick of the trade is that pre-need form can be used to establish your eligibility for the government headstone as well. This is good stuff. Next slide. Okay, so this one's nice. This one's great, but I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. In 2022, for the 8th consecutive time, NCA achieved the highest ranking of any organization, public or private, on the American Customer Satisfaction Index. So we're registered against other government agencies, private companies, and so forth. That's good. And it's actually, we achieved the highest score ever on that rating in 2022 as well. That's important. That's great. And that's good. We're proud of it. But honestly, it is not a reason for us to rest on our laurels. We have a little informal motto that while we don't take ourselves too seriously, we take our job very, very seriously, because we only have one chance to get it right for people who are deeply hurting and deeply vulnerable. So we want to be there for them. Next slide. Okay, next slide. Access. Boom. Here's a map. Now, not all of these cemeteries are obviously national cemeteries. However, our state and tribal partners are on there. If you go on our website, cem.va.gov. Scott, if I could trouble you maybe to post in the chat for me, even though we're in different offices, maybe that's something you could do. To post the NCA website, you can actually look up which cemeteries are in your state and what access means. Thank you, Scott. You're the man. So that being said, our goal is to have a burial option for 95% of America's veterans. Well, what constitutes a burial option? A burial option is to have a national, state, or tribal cemetery within 75 miles. We are getting very, very close to that goal. Next slide. Thank you for posting that website, Scott, by the way. Okay. Oh, there's more. Look at that. Alaska, Hawaii. There we go. We got several out in Hawaii to include Punch Bowl. Puerto Rico, we got 2 national cemeteries out there, as well as a state/territorial cemetery. And if anybody's going to Guam or Saipan, there is territorial cemeteries out there as well. Next slide. Okay, this is what I was talking about, increasing access. In 2010, we were at 84%. Now we are almost at 94%. And again, that means for 94% of America's veterans, there is a burial option within 75 miles. We are opening up new cemeteries, new columbariums within cemeteries. Believe it or not, in the city of New York, we are actually going to be opening up a columbarium. A little hard to find space for casketed burials in New York City, but we actually were able to get space for a columbarium, believe it or not, such as we've done in Los Angeles and so forth. And we're continuously looking for more and more burial space. We're not just consigned to major cities, of course. We're outside of major cities. We're even in rural areas. We opened up a new national cemetery in Fargo, North Dakota, not too long ago. It was several years ago, actually, which has just been an incredible blessing for the people in that area. Next slide. Cemetery grants program, again, This is an important thing, but in the interest of time, we give the money to state, territorial, and tribal cemeteries, and they run them according to our very high standards. Next slide. Okay, pictures of some of our cemeteries. Alexandria National Cemetery was actually the first national cemetery. I believe it was, yes, 1863. Next slide. Okay, next slide. Okay, Veterans Legacy Memorial. I've got to update this slide because this is something actually 10 million veterans have a page, not 5 million. Very easy website to remember, va.gov/remember, va.gov/remember. Veterans Legacy Memorial is this. And this goes to the legacy of memorialization, which is, through our headstones, the memorial certificates, and so forth. But really, what legacy does is this. It connects an American public that is increasingly disconnected from its veteran population and ensuring that the veterans that are buried in our cemeteries, and now we've expanded VLM to go outside of our cemeteries to veterans that are buried in civilian cemeteries, they are never forgotten. Anybody can go online and leave a tribute on the Veterans Legacy Memorial. You can upload photos, you can upload documents, you can upload tributes. Yes, we do screen everything before it's posted just to make sure everything is good to go, but I promise you 99.9% of the comments we get before they're even posted are amazing. Some of the best ones we've gotten have actually been those who are like, listen, I didn't know Pete Tingstrom, but you know what? Pete and I share the same name. And I looked up his profile on Veterans Legacy Memorial, and wow, I am even more proud than ever to have that name. So it ensures that a veteran is never forgotten. Tell you a very quick story. There was on the funeral honors team for my state as well, because I'm still in the National Guard, 24 years Army. And there were 2 services that I did that day. So I wasn't wearing my NCA hat. I was wearing my Army hat. One was for a retired FBI agent. It had 200 people at his funeral, and everything was just done very, very well and very proper. The next veteran we had, nobody was there. Nobody. So the funeral director came out and the cemetery director came out. The cemetery director acted as the next of kin. We folded the flag, presented the flag. And what I'm telling you is that veteran service was
Hey, Larry, can you unmute? Sorry, I just muted you accidentally.
yeah, radio check.
Good to go.
Okay. So yeah, so basically what I was saying is, we're ensuring that nobody is forgotten through VLM and through our cemeteries. One of the things we pride ourselves on, everybody looks the same in our cemeteries, in the sense the headstones are exactly the same. So you could have a buck private buried next to the SOCOM commander. There's absolutely no difference except what is on the headstone. And that's just, one of the things that we pride ourselves on is that everything looks the same. There's that uniformity because, they outrank us. So we're going to make sure that everything looks the same, that nobody looks better, nobody looks worse than the other, that everything is up to the same high standard. And again, like was said before in the movie Patton, other people have come through here, Romans, Carthaginians, their graves are gone. Our graves aren't going anywhere. Next slide. Okay. Veterans Legacy Program. We give money to colleges and universities. They do research based on the veterans buried in our cemeteries. They get something out of it. They get academic research. We get something out of it because, again, we get even more in-depth bios of those who are buried within our cemeteries. Next slide. And that is it. And I too will hold for questions. I'll turn the con over to Pete, and just really thank you all for what you do. It's incredible. We love the SF community. We started outreaching with them, I believe it was in 2017 when I came on board, and we're going to continue to do so.
Thanks, Larry. Looks like the question in the chat came up. For a cremated veteran, have a VA cemetery niche even though they're buried at sea?
That is an excellent excellent question. I don't know about an in memory of niche. I would think there would be, but I do know if a veteran is buried at sea, or just expanding it larger, just using an example, say there was a, well, okay, I'll just use it, maybe something like the World Trade Center where remains were never found, for example. We can do an in memory of marker, which is a government headstone, as well. So I would assume we could do an in memory of niche, though I will have to get a full answer on that and get back with you. But my instinct says definitely yes. But I'll double check on that for sure. But we definitely do in memory of headstones, without question.
Awesome. Okay, opening it up to the crowd. I know this has been long. This is probably one of the most important topics that we have that people woefully are not prepared for. So felt worth covering this in detail. Any questions out there? For myself, Larry, or Scott? No, I don't hear anything. So, hey, thank you everyone for coming out tonight. And you got some good websites. My goal is to consolidate all this into one location that you're able to find easily. I will email it to all to the same email that told you about this presentation opportunity, slides, the Excel spreadsheet that we talked about. Get all that to you guys to where you have access to the links to all these My Army benefits, Human Resource Command, all the VA sites with contact information. And so appreciate it. If you have any questions, you could always reach out to us as well. And thank you so much for coming out today. I'm going to stop the recording and I'll stick on if anyone else has any questions they didn't want to ask on camera. Have a good night.